April, so good to see you. We're going to start with a really important question. When is the right time to buy an annuity? As Americans live longer and face growing concerns about outliving their money, annuities are becoming a popular way to create steady retirement income. So Americans purchased more than $432 billion in annuities. That was for 2024, according to LIMRA. We're still waiting for the 2025 numbers. Of course, timing is everything. If you are under 50, an annuity probably isn't the right move. But on the flip side, most insurers stop selling them once you hit 90. So when is like the right age, the right time to be buying an annuity?
That's a fantastic question. And it's really more about the deferral period than it
Okay.
is about the age for the most part. Age is certainly a factor. You don't necessarily want to enter an annuity too young and have lower payout factors, but there's a big factor at hand, which is the deferral period, meaning the period of time between the time that you enter that annuity and the time that you intend to begin lifetime income from the annuity, assuming that's the goal. And there are different solutions for different periods of time. There are pros and cons to all of them. So there's a very detailed assessment that goes into the timing, the amount, and that specific strategy, weighing all of those pros and cons and selecting the right tool.
And you were touching on this, but what problems do annuities solve?
The most common problem that they solve is income.
Yeah.
And we've seen a shift over decades now from defined contribution plans becoming on the onus is now on the employee. It used to be defined benefit plans where you went and you worked for the same company your entire career. You had a pension that you lived off of and some social security. And the amount of assets that you saved, really, there wasn't as much strain on that. But now this shift has taken place to defined contribution plans where pensions have become increasingly rare.
Right.
And the onus is on, again, on the employee. So saving as much as you can, but in a very mindful manner, and knowing how to allocate those funds is increasingly important as you approach what we call the retirement red zone. So that 5 to 10 year period before retirement, the earlier the better, of course, but at minimum in that 5 to 10 year period before retirement, making sure that you're assessing what those needs are. And a lot of times that need is income, again, because pensions have really gone by the wayside. So where the annuity comes in is as a pension replacement. There are a lot of different types of annuities. There are fixed annuities, there are fixed index, there are variable. Those are the three primary types where sometimes the solve is for principal protection only. Maybe there isn't an income need, but especially in a period of time where bonds were underperforming, fixed annuities became increasingly popular as a bond alternative, because if we have a lot of volatility in the what is supposed to be the more stable part of the portfolio,
Right.
then we're underperforming, potentially even moving negative instead of having that balance. So principal protection is another need that is solved both by fixed and fixed income. Variable annuities, we're really seeing on the decline in the last several years for a lot of reasons. We typically steer away from variable annuities because of the fees that you see attached to that type of vehicle. And there are often other solutions that can be more cost effective and principal protected as well.
And of course, figuring out the right retirement income plan is going to be different for everyone. But is there a rule of thumb when it comes to how much of your asset should be in an annuity?
It varies a lot based on the income need and the amount of the net worth, because if there's a lot of the percentage doesn't always match the dollar figure. If you're looking at a portfolio of 100,000 versus $2 million, then you've got a lot more liquidity if you have 50%, for example, that is tied up in an annuity. So and rather than trying to stick to a specific rule of thumb, a very detailed risk assessment and liquidity needs assessment can be a very good way to help you solve to make sure that you don't allocate too heavily either to principal protection or to growth. There are also a lot of suitability guidelines. Some companies will say 50%, some will go up to 75. Typically, you're not going to see anything over 75, and I would consider that to be pretty heavily weighted at that point. Closer to 50% is typically going to be a better rule of thumb.
Okay. I think another question a lot of people have, they'd like to know about the tax implications that come with annuities for you and your heirs.
Yeah. And people often get confused about this, don't realize, for example, that you can have an account that is an IRA inside of an annuity. An annuity is tool, it's a vehicle. It doesn't change the tax designation. So if you take your company plan and you roll it into an annuity, it's typically going to be an IRA umbrella. The taxation of that's not going to change. It's still going to be taxed when you distribute those funds, just like it would if it was in a 401k upon distribution. Now, if you put non-qualified dollars, so money that is post-tax, into an annuity, then what you're doing is deferring the taxes. And we use this as a powerful tool sometimes for people who have too high of a level of interest hitting their income tax return. I often sit with people who have pretty good CD rates, for example, dividend and interest income that their investments are kicking off. They're hitting their income tax return and they're causing them a higher level of tax, even though they're not using that interest to live off of.
Right.
It's still hitting their income tax return. So when you put that money into an annuity, it's not tax-free, of course, it's not a Roth, but it is tax deferred. So what that simply means is there's got to be an assessment to, does it make sense to defer some or all of these taxes into the future, whether that's for me or for my heirs? And especially if these are funds that you don't foresee needing, that can be a really good strategy to help keep your Social Security taxes and other taxes down during your retirement years. We just do have to be mindful that those taxes are deferred into the future and to incorporate that into the overall planning on an ongoing basis, both for you and for your beneficiaries.
So April, when somebody comes in and sits down with you, you crunch the numbers and determine that an annuity isn't the best fit. What are some good alternatives for creating stable income in retirement?
Most people are looking for guaranteed income when they have an income.
Sounds nice.
So that's typically the direction that most people choose, is they are more comfortable with a concept called income allocation, where you carve off only what is needed to generate your income need. And then the rest is where we can afford to take some risk, diversify into some higher risk categories, moderate risk categories, whatever is appropriate for that particular risk appetite. Sometimes, however, if it's more of a, let's see what type of interest we can earn, we'll have a dividend portfolio that might be appropriate based off of the risk score, the risk comfort level of an individual that can kick off some additional income as well. So really just depends on whether that's income that is wanted or needed, and we break it down from there.
Interesting. Yeah, it's great to talk this through because I feel like, again, annuity sales have been so high lately. So I appreciate talking through clearly what some people would assume is a cookie cutter answer. There are alternatives, but this needs to be part of a plan. So of course, April, if somebody would like to sit down with you to create that plan, see if an annuity is right for them, what's the best way to reach you?
You can give either of our offices a call, or you can reach us any time of day on our website at 𝗀retirementfamily.com. And we're happy to help you weigh the pros and cons of the different options that are available, both with the type of accounts and also with a lot of different companies as well.
Okay. April, thank you.
Thank you, Erin.